Hi everyone, welcome back to another lightsaber video. This is part 2 of a 3-part video that I decided to make about all the lightsabers in the original trilogy. So part 1 was all the lightsabers in A New Hope. If you haven't seen that video, feel free to check it out. I'll leave a link at the end of the video as well if you want to see that at the end. That's okay, you don't have to see them in order. Just like Star Wars, it'll still make sense. Although I think it'll make a little bit more sense if you see the A New Hope one first and then come back to this one, because some of the hilts were reused. So let's just get straight to it. Like I said in the last video, the basic idea of the hilts in original trilogy was that each character would have usually one hero prop. So this is Luke's and Vader's for Empire. And so the hero prop is what appears on that character in sort of promotional material, any kind of pictures taken for purposes of press, promotion, whatever. These are also the props that went on to be kind of copied and made into officially licensed replicas and toys. So those are the hero props. They tend to be in better condition than the stunt props. These were primarily used as belt hangers by the actors, so they were completely static, not functional in any way, no blades, no nothing. It would literally just be like this on the actor's belt, or they would at most take it off their belt, just hold it for a second, just for a slightly kind of a close-up shot or a medium shot before it ignites, and then it would change to the stunt prop. So this is the hero prop for ESB, for Luke. Everyone knows the Graflex. It's, I think, pretty iconic. So unlike the A New Hope, it's missing the beer tab, and it has 2 buttons instead of a button and a glass eye. And of course it also has a circuit board instead of the bubble strip. There's lots of other differences too, we won't go into that today. But I think everyone's familiar with this look. This is what's been replicated in toys and various kind of replicas throughout the years. And this was even the inspiration behind the modern kind of Graflexes that we see in the sequel trilogy. So this is the ESB hero prop. Now this served as the belt hanger throughout the entire movie. And so the filming sequence was, Hoth was first, everything I think in Bespin was second, and Dagobah was last. So I think due to like climate and just natural kind of wear and tear and damage, this prop did deteriorate over time, over the course of filming, so that in Hoth it still looked like this, quite nice and shiny and new. Towards, I'm not sure about Bespin. Some people say that the screws appear there on the top of it. I've never seen that. I mean, I can't make my eyes kind of see the tiny little screws here on the grips in Bespin, but they certainly appear in Dagobah. So in Dagobah, this same hero prop would then look a little bit more worn, like this. Sorry, not this one. I grabbed the wrong one. This one. So this is the exact same prop, but this is the Dagobah. So you can see the screws appear here on the top of the grips, as well as the ones on the bottom. And also this grip here has suffered some sort of damage where it's become bent. And also it's lost one of the buttons. And it appears like this, hung on Luke's belt in Dagobah. So yeah, that's still the Dagobah belt hanger, which was the Bespin Hoth belt hanger / hero, but it's the same prop. This prop still survived until now, and it's it's in the archives with Lucasfilm. So it's at the Skywalker Ranch, and it looks like this. And that's, the fans call this the ranch saber. So it's been broken, the lever was broken, and it's kind of been, you can see it's missing its rivet. It's been kind of drilled in, and then a screw to kind of hold it all together. And then this tape appears, this like textured mylar tape appears for the first time. But you can see the bent grip is still there, the double screws. The cobalt is upside down as opposed to how it was. It's just a lot more kind of wear and tear over the years. But this is how it appeared in the Magic of Myth tour and in kind of promotional material from the Skywalker Ranch. So this is the Ranch Saber, and it is what we believe to be the original ESB hero as it stands today. So now we move on to the stunts. So we've covered Luke's hero. Now there's two stunts. We'll start with this one because it looks very, very similar, as you can see. There's very minor differences, like the thin knurling here on the button, the beer tab that's not broken, and some other differences. But this is a stunt prop. This was used in the Wampa scene, and probably on everything else in Hoth too. So when it's lit, basically. So when Han cuts the Tauntaun, when Luke pulls it with the Force, this is quite a famous fan favorite because we can see it plunged in the snow and we can clearly see the stamping there. So fans love building this version because you can clearly see the Fulmer stamping, New York, all of that. So this is the Wampa stunt, and there are pictures of it behind the scenes where we see the way that they did it is they kind of squished the bunny ears together like this, and they just kind of like jammed or like shoved something here, like a shorter blade, so it's just held by tension. And then we believe it was just kind of stuck under the, well, it wasn't real snow, obviously it was on set, but it was kind of stuck in like that. And then someone had like they rigged something to it that would kind of like wiggle it like that, and then you know, Mark would have something to kind of pull it towards him. But it only had a short blade because they only needed like a short blade for reference against like the Tauntaun and stuff. So this is the first appearance. It was intact like this. And later on, when this was needed for dueling, that rod just doesn't work anymore because it just wouldn't take a beating. At this point, they've come up with some kind of like new technology, because if you've seen the previous video, the stunt sabers in A New Hope all had to be motorized, fully motorized inside, so that they would spin and the blade would reflect and they'd complete the animation this way. But now the technology of ILM had advanced, so they don't need any of that anymore. All they need is literally something like this, just a small tang with a blade mounted on it, and then the actors would do their duel, they'd do their action scenes, and they'd do all the animation, all the flickering, all the deflections, all of that would be done, you know, post-production in editing. So they literally just needed like sticks to kind of fight with it. And that's why the duels in Empire and Jedi are much more dynamic and aggressive than in A New Hope. So this is the Wampa. This is the exact same hilt, but look how much they had to modify it to allow for that. I'm sorry, I'm again holding the wrong one. Right, here's the Wampa. You can see the thin knurled bottom on the top. But look how much work had to go into it. So they drilled these holes in the upper. They had a core inside to hold this tang, and then some of these bolts, at least one, would hold the tang in place. The rest would kind of hold the core, hold it all together basically, so this is not going anywhere. And then the blade would mount on top of this. Now this was, I think all of this was down to Mark, because he found this to be extremely uncomfortable. All this business here, down here, the grips are super uncomfortable. So all that got removed for him, for the Bespin, and it, you know, got covered with gaffer tape and a very low profile, foamy, soft grips. So there are pictures of it that look like this. It is much more comfortable to hold. So this is sort of the Bespin look of that same stunt hilt. And then when we moved on to Dagobah, there are pictures of it like this too, because I think originally there was meant to be some action sequences with Luke training with Yoda where he did have the saber. So there are some behind the scenes where he's holding it like this. But there's ones where it also got kind of stripped back. So the tape disappeared, the foam grips disappeared, and they mounted different grips. This time they didn't have the screws and stuff, and the lever's upside down. So it appears this way, almost like as a belt hanger at some point in Dagobah. Why it was on his belt as like a belt hanger when he already had a belt hanger, I'm not sure, but this is how it appeared in at least some behind the scenes footage in Dagobah. So I call this the Dagobah stunt, but I'm not sure that it was used as like a stunt hilt in this configuration, because it doesn't make sense. I mean, this was comfortable enough. So even like the cave scene in his vision with Vader, it was like this. So why they then stripped it back like this, I'm not too sure. But what's really interesting about this one is you can see the clamp, it's got those 3 big holes. So that ends up being on Luke Return of the Jedi V3. Let me see if I can just grab that to show you what I mean. Right, so here's Luke's stunt hilt from Return of the Jedi, and as you can see, the clamp has these 3 drilled round holes. So that clamp must have come from this one. So that's pretty interesting about this. And what happened to this hilt after filming? So this is after ESB. So this is the final state. So it started as Wampa, Bespin, and now it's Dagobah. After filming, it would go on to become Vader's DV6 in Return of the Jedi. You can still see the evidence there. The bolts, the holes, the same sort of grips, the cobalt, all of it. They just changed it. They just mounted this kind of shroud, greebly there, and all that other stuff to make it look more like Vader, painted it. So it's pretty cool that this stunt hilt from ESB ended up becoming Vader's stunt in Return of the Jedi, and the clamp became Luke's stunt clamp, the V3. So, all right, let's put that aside. So we've covered the hero and the first stunt and what happened to them. Now this is his second stunt. This is a severed hand. This is a prop that's like a real Frankenstein of parts. So the top is a Graflex. The lower end is a cobalt flash. I hope you can see the cobalt stamping. Some parts on it are completely unknown, like this and this. That's a fake red button, probably from a cobalt. These things here are like from a turntable, cone knobs, just like on the Luke V2. So this thing is a mess, and it was only used for that one scene where Vader cuts off Luke's hand, and this goes kind of, it's attached to like a fake hand, obviously with a clamp of some sort, and just Mark activates it, and it just kind of goes flying off like that. So that's a severed hand prop. So yeah, basically one hero belt hanger that eventually became the ranch saber, 2 stunts, one that started nice and clean in the Wampa, then gradually got more and more kind of modified for the action scenes in Bespin and Dagobah, and this later on became the DV6 and V3, and the severed hand. So that covers Luke. Now we move on to Vader. So Vader's hero prop, which is a belt hanger in both ESB and Return of the Jedi. I think everyone knows this. It's the MPP with the colored wires and the bubble strip and stuff. Not much to say about this. I think everyone's familiar with the MPP. during ESB, it wasn't as battered as this. This is very rusty. It's got screws, it's got bits that are broken. This is more of a post-production look. During ESB, it would have been a little bit cleaner than this, but that's the Hero. Again, 2 stunts. One of them, if you've seen again the previous video, his A New Hope square shroud stunt, which was motorized, was reused in ESB as a stunt, but like I said, they don't need the motors anymore, so all of this was gone. The wires, the switches, all of that. They once again drilled, I don't have that version, but they drilled holes in the upper and they mounted just like this. There would have been bolts securing the rod, and you would just use it like as a static, you know, stunt prop. Okay, so that's the square shroud, and that ultimately became the Barbican. His second stunt was made from an MPP, just like the Hero, but as you can see, this was drilled as usual. Again, the bolts to secure the tang. Looks very, very similar to the Hero. And this went on to be kind of auctioned by the prop store last year, I think. That famously went for something like $3 million or something. So that's the one, because it was used as a stunt hilt in both Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, this one, just like the Hero. So this is an ESB Return of the Jedi Hero. That's an ESB and Return of the Jedi stunt. This was just a stunt in ESB, was not used in Return of the Jedi, but it did become the Barbican. I do want to stop before I kind of get more kind of sidetracked and make it overly complicated and confusing, but that's basically it. So literally every character has usually 1 hero, 2 stunts. 1 hero, 2 stunts. Hero is a belt hanger. Stunts are for action scenes. In the case of Luke, it kind of changed over time. First, it was done a little bit more comfortable for him, for Bespin, as it's a long duel. Then for some reason it was stripped back again. Then later on it went on to become Vader's. So this one is in the prop store. That one still exists today, the Hero. Stephen Lane has it in his personal collection, the CEO of Prop Store. That one became the Barbican hilt, so still with Lucasfilm. That one's still with Lucasfilm. That one is still with Lucasfilm, as obviously as a DV6. That one is still with Lucasfilm as the Ranch Saber. So if you kind of want to look at them as to what they are now, the Hero becomes the Ranch, the Stunt becomes the DV6, the Severed Hand is as it is, the Hero is as it is, this becomes the Barbican, which I do not have, this is as it is. So this is kind of how they stand now. They all still exist, which is pretty cool. None of them have been completely lost, which is unlike A New Hope, where most, if not all, of the props were just gone. We can't really account for them anymore. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So that's it really for ESB. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something from it. I hope it was interesting. As always, feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments. Yeah, the cat didn't appear today. That was nice. So I'll be making part 3, Return of Jedi, very, very soon. All right. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one.